Welcome to Conversations. I'm your host, Robin Torres. Our guest today is Kansas City, Kansas Chief of Police Rick Armstrong. Chief Armstrong has worked in nearly every possible position in the Kansas City, Kansas Police Department during his 32-year career. He worked himself up the ladder from cadet to the youngest chief in Kansas City, Kansas Police Department's history. Thank you, Chief Armstrong, for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Okay. Before we get into your police chief duties and as far as the police department itself, I want to ask you about Rick Armstrong, the civilian, the person. Where did you grow up in Kansas City, Kansas?
I grew up in the Argentine area of Kansas City, Kansas.
And you graduated from?
J.C. Harmon High School in 1978.
1978. Tell us about your family.
I've been married. My wife Allison and I have been married for 24 years this June. She'll be happy I remember that. We have two beautiful daughters, Alyssa, who's 22, and Caitlin, 17. Okay,
now I just heard something very fascinating about Caitlin, who is a junior at Piper High School, along with my daughter. And what was that news?
I think her PSAT score was good, very good.
Very good.
So we're real pleased with that.
Okay.
Caitlin's very academic and always makes us proud.
And I do know your wife, Allison. Been knowing her for a very long time. We went to middle school together, actually. And she was my son's teacher, and now she is my daughter's teacher. And she will also be appearing on the show. We're going to have an episode on educators in Kansas City, Kansas. So I'll be very happy to have her here.
I'm sure she'll be excited about that.
I'm very happy. Let's go to the career choice now. To get into law enforcement, why did you decide to get into law enforcement?
You know, that question gets asked a lot, and it's a question that we still ask of all of our new officers as they come on. Why? Why do you want to be a police officer? And amazingly, the answers really don't vary a lot. It's pretty simple about the idea of trying to make the community a safer, better place to live. And that was 1977 when I took the test to become a police cadet. That question was asked of me.
Wow.
It's still true.
Okay. And the different positions that you've held throughout your career?
Well, I've had the real benefit of serving in every facet of the police department in terms of rank. I started as a police cadet for almost 3 years, then a patrol officer for almost 10, and then a sergeant for 4, and then a lieutenant for 2, a captain for 3, a major for 3, a deputy chief for 3, and currently chief, and we're about 7 months in at this point.
Well, which one of those positions were the most intense?
You know, I really find that all those, they all had value. Obviously, starting as a cadet and the opportunity, as a cadet where you get a chance to work in every department, throughout the department, gives you a panoramic view of the police department. Truly, assignments you won't get to see again until you become a lieutenant or captain or major. But as a cadet, you're in those jobs as a quasi-administrative assistant, so you get to be the proverbial fly on the wall. And those observations still are valuable to me today, things I observed and seen at that point in time. So, and then of course as an officer, that was the dream coming on the job, and I still find that to be the most important job on the police department is our patrol officers. The men and women who are the frontline people that interact with our community, they are the most important piece of the department. Everything else supports that mission.
Okay. Being on the front line yourself, what were some of your most memorable experiences or events going from funny, hilarious, to the more serious?
Well, I think that, I've heard it said that it's one of the, you probably can't pay people for the opportunities and the things that you see in terms of interest and excitement. I mean, you can't go out and watch a movie or go to any other type of entertainment that this is exciting and dramatic and important as what you see as a police officer. And as a young officer, I remember very clearly some of my first calls, the excitement of going to calls where, there was a lot of risk. I think initially there's a certain amount of excitement in doing those types of calls. Early on, my first summer as a training officer in training, we were involved in a very serious situation in the northeast area of the city where several people were shot and killed, unfortunately, and several officers were shot at, including the car that I was in. Our car was shot numerous times, and I think that was probably one of the more dramatic things that happened early on in my career. That was, this is serious. It's not just, you know, excitement, but there's consequences to that. As an officer, I remember some of the silly things that might happen. People would call for, you know, an argument over who had control of the remote control for the television. Not things you would typically think are police-related. Some of the more personal things, like someone would fall out of bed and not have the ability to get back up, and that you'd be there in the most humblest and the most appropriate of public servant position, that getting that person to bed might be the most valuable thing that you did on your shift. And it wasn't just all about, you know, chases and excitement, but about real human needs that you were able to try to meet as an officer. And I think I found that very rewarding, you know, actually, to be involved in people in a very personal way and making their life a little better each and every day and night.
Do you run into those individuals from time to time, being right here in Wyandotte County, Kansas City, Kansas, visiting the grocery stores or shopping areas? Do you ever run into the faces and remember the people and events?
Amazingly, yes. Very free. People remember, and sometimes people remember you maybe because you're in the uniform and it brings back a memory. But yes, on a very frequent basis. And again, that's part of the benefit of being in the city and being in the community and interacting, is that there's a long history. In 32 years, 32 and a half years, you begin to have those kinds of people that will remember you when probably both of us were a lot younger. And yes, it's rewarding.
Okay. The show Cops did a segment in Kansas City, Kansas. Were you involved with that?
Not directly in terms of the video piece or being out in the field, but I was actually working as an assistant to the chief at that point, and I had the editing responsibility. When the shows, they allow us the ability to do final editing before they go back to publication, and my responsibility was to ensure that there's nothing on those tapes that you know, appears inappropriate or appears, you know, citizens or someone might have some information exposed that would be inappropriate. So I saw it as really a challenge, and not something that I saw a great benefit. I think it's one of those things that people like to watch for drama and excitement, but I think from an organizational point of view, there's a lot of people there that are shown in less than the best circumstances, and so I have a natural reluctance to put that out there into the media. Okay.
How did Kansas City get selected?
Well, I think initially the show was going around the country, and they were going to cities that had a lot of activity, a lot of police activity, and so they actually have been to our city numerous times, as has the show 48 Hours. And they saw it as a real opportunity to film a lot of actual drama, and there were enough, there's enough activity that it showed interest, and their show got good ratings for when they were here. So, in fact, even recently they made a contact with us with their interest to come back and film. And as chief, I may not be supportive of that. I don't know if that's, again, in the best interest of our city.
Okay. We're going to continue this conversation when we come back from break, and we'll be right back. We're back with Chief Armstrong, Kansas City, Kansas Police Department's chief. Thank you for being with us again.
Glad to be here.
Now let's get back let's start up with, first of all, you teach here at Kansas City, Kansas Community College. You adjunct.
Yes,
now, how long have you been doing that?
I was trying to think. I believe 1991 I started teaching here part-time.
In the what department?
In the criminal justice area.
Okay. Now, what was that like?
What's interesting is how I got, you know, when I started as a police cadet in 1978, my first class here at the college, fall of 1978, Dr. Ben Hayes was actually over the criminal justice program, and so he was one of my first instructors, and I found him to be, you know, fascinating, supportive, saw him as a role model, and took several classes from him. And when I concluded here at KCK, he said to me, if you go back to school and get your grad degree someday, let me know, and I probably could find a job for you. So when I finished my, or actually when I was into my MPA program at KU, I approached Dr. Hayes and said, "You still have a job?" And he said, "Put an application. There was an opening." And so I did, and I went in for the process and was selected as an instructor. So I've been doing it pretty much every semester since 1991, 1992.
Is there any way you can look out, because I know as an adjunct instructor myself, you can look out the potential successful students? Can you pick out any successful, potential successful police officers when you're teaching in that class?
Absolutely. In fact, each semester I've had students who get successful careers in law enforcement as part of their process. Many of those ask me to be some type of write a letter of recommendation, or be someone they can put on as a person who has knowledge of their abilities and skills. And so I usually keep notes of all my students and tell them I'll always be straightforward and honest about how I perceive them as an instructor. And we have dozens of police officers on KCK who were formerly students of mine, and dozens more who are in law enforcement, either at the local level, county level, state level, or with the federal level. So it's extremely rewarding to see students, come into the classroom, and this start here at KCK Community College takes them on to a full-time career in law enforcement.
Are you teaching this semester?
Yes, I am.
Now, they know you're a chief now, right?
Yes, they do.
Is that different?
Last semester was the fall semester of 2010 was the first semester that I was actually teaching as chief. And it does intrigue the students. And of course, anything that becomes newsworthy, I usually start my classes with current events specific related to law enforcement. And oftentimes the current events are things that they've either seen on television or something that they know that I would have knowledge of. And they often probe and ask questions, and I can talk about things that are appropriate and other things that tell them maybe in the future I'll be able to tell them about.
Okay. Now let's move to chief. What was the process that you went through when deciding you wanted to apply for this job?
Well, I think it was a process of almost 30 years on the job that I don't know that I would have felt experienced enough. I think I've always believed and still believe there's so much to be learned. I had the benefit of working for a number of chiefs who were very influential, that I had a chance to work around them or near them and observe and learn. Most recent was Chief Brashears, and I was one of his deputy chiefs. And so as he was talking and getting ready to separate for the first time, you begin to realize that there are other worthy people inside the department who would be skilled and able to move in that position. But I think for the first time I thought that I had something to offer, and then the experiences that I'd had would be beneficial. And but then the process, it's like reinventing yourself. You have to go back, and I had not put a job resume together for a long time, 30 years, and to think about putting all of your information and your experience and your accomplishments or achievements that hopefully put you in a category where you were at least competitive. And then the process itself was very intense. It was a matter of scrutinizing all of your background information all over, and again, the things that you put out there for your resume. But the process had interviewing, it had a lot of media type events, it put you under pressure. There was a very rigorous interview process with a lot of key people from the community and from government at all levels. And the process itself, and there was work samples, things they put you under pressure, time samples, things like that. It was two of the most rigorous days I've experienced.
Let's go back to, you said that you were actually interviewed by different community people and
Yes.
in the government. I didn't know that.
There were a number of boards that they actually had us go before, and there was 3 scenarios that we were given. And members of the community, people who either live, work, or function inside KCK, and people from business, from the clergy, from different community groups and organizations. In addition, there were law enforcement chiefs from other departments who were invited in, federal law enforcement people were invited in to observe, judges, educators. And what's interesting, that with that audience, and of course everything was done under scenarios, real type scenarios that a police chief might have to function under, and usually being videotaped, and the bright lights and everything was intended to make it very realistic and also very stressful. They wanted to see how you performed, and it was very stressful.
Were they all in the same room?
No, they were moved. We actually moved from one scenario, and then we were given about 10 minutes to prepare for each scenario. So it was impossible to do all your research or gain knowledge for that 10 minutes. The 10 minutes basically told you what to expect, and the scenarios were relied upon what you brought to the table, what your experience base, what your skill levels were. Either you had it or you didn't, and I don't think I had all of it, but apparently I had enough to give me the chance to be offered the position.
Now I know from experience that when you apply to be a police officer or work for the police department, they do a very rigorous background check. Do they use the FBI for that?
For the chief selection process, you know, there is a detailed background done. I had the benefit that I'm a graduate of the FBI National Academy, and I sit on a federal FBI task force that required top secret clearance going into it. So I had some benefit going into it that I had already received a high level of clearance going in.
I did work for the police department for just a little time, and I remember them going to my neighbors. They came to my job. I didn't know that they were even asking questions about me, but later on I found out the police department came in and asked questions about you, so that was interesting.
Yes, it's very thorough.
It's very thorough. So what has that experience been like for you, climbing the ladder from being a cadet to chief? What has the transition been like for you?
Extremely rewarding. I wouldn't go back and change the career or the process. Not just the good experiences, but also I think the difficult experiences. I really believe that my experience has shown that we grow as much from the difficult or challenging experiences as we do from the things that everything goes the way we hope and it's real positive. And at each level, I mean literally from cadet all the way through, each level had an area of learning that you couldn't achieve without being in that position. And I never tried to look too far out. I didn't have an aspiration as cadet to be chief. It wasn't that I thought that far out. I pretty much, you know, tried to thrive in the moment, try to learn and gain as much knowledge as possible and be productive. And as you get closer, then it becomes a more natural opportunity to look to the next level. And I think my thought always has never been that I cared about the rank on my collar or even that I was driven by pay, because I would say that that's never been a motivation, although I'm aware of it. It's been more, can I do more, can I have more influence? Can I do more, get more done? And rank inside the police department gives you more authority and more responsibility. And I think that's been the reward, that you're able to implement new programs, and I hopefully keep the department responsive and take advantage of the talent, because we have so many talented people inside the organization, and we have such a great community here in KCK that's willing to work with us, and that makes it fun to come to work.
Yes, we do. How do you keep those bad experiences from burning you out?
Well, I think that you know, having your own personal faith system, I think that I see a larger perspective. I always have coming on that my belief is that this is our challenge here is to do the best we can, and I've never had an unrealistic thought that we're perfect. I'm sure I make as many mistakes or more than anyone else, but I think the goal is trying to serve the community well, and I think that's why when I come to the job and things happen in less than desirable ways, it's try to learn from it, use that, and also if this path doesn't work, there's always another path, and I think that we have to recognize that stepping stones are stumbling blocks. I mean, sometimes things come your way and you can feel tripped up, but to me it oftentimes opens other opportunities that when you think, wow, this was not where I wanted to go, if you reinvest or re-examine it, sometimes you can find even a better path than the one you thought, the one that you initially came to.
That's
So
true.
So that's been kind of a style that's worked for me.
Okay. We're going to come right back and we're going to talk more about the various departments in the Kansas City, Kansas Police Department. And we'll be right back after this short break. Hi, and welcome back. Joining us for Conversations, I'm here with Chief Rick Armstrong of Kansas City, Kansas Police Department. Now let's start talking about the training of cadets, the new location that they're going to have here in Kansas City, Kansas.
Both our cadets and our recruit officers will be exposed to training in the new police academy, and we're excited about having that academy here on the campus. The Kansas Kansas Police Department and the Kansas City, Kansas Community College have a long history of working together. Training in Kansas is through the Kansas Law Enforcement Training Center, and although the main center is in Hutchinson, Kansas, we have 8 satellite academies throughout the state, one of which is here in Kansas City, Kansas. We saw the Johnson County model where the regional training site there is on the campus of the Johnson County Community College being a good model for us, but that's been, a decade ago that they actually had that in place. So I credit the board and the president here at the college to see fit to put the police department new training academy here on the campus. And I saw that as very important in terms of the academic aspect, that so much of training is educational, and we have many officers, both aspiring to become officers and current officers on the department, who are in continuing education programs. They actually go across the street to class on the campus, and we see students who can look across the street and actually recognize someday they may be over there sitting in a classroom receiving training through our new academy. I think it's around 5,000 or 6,000 square feet, and maybe 8,000. I may be wrong. I think it may be 8,000 square feet. 2 large classrooms, other areas for physical training, exercise type equipment, things that will make training for officers on site possible where that currently isn't the case. And the training there will be all inclusive, both classroom training, which involves a lot of law training, basic understanding of laws, arrest, search and seizure, constitutionality issues. It will also be firearms training. We have a firearms simulator there. They can actually do training inside there with actually firing a weapon, but we have simulation equipment that will be very realistic and very virtual. Also, we have equipment to do what's called EVOC, which is a driving simulator piece of equipment there that will be on site at the campus. So I can actually do a lot of training in that building without ever going outside. So it's really going to be a state-of-the-art type facility, and we're extremely excited about it coming online.
As you have more women coming into the police department force, are trainings different for women than they are for men? Are the women expected to be as physically fit and everything for the job?
Well, I think in the 32 years I've been here, I've seen a lot of change, and I think that the changes began to occur, really 20 years ago, where instead of just having random job qualifications, they became job-specific qualifications. And so for anyone who applies, male or female, the standards are the same, that can you perform the essential job functions to do the job of a police officer. And the height, weight, and gender issues that I think were probably wrongfully applied back historically, I think we've corrected those for the most part. And so now, yes, anyone who graduates from our academy, male or female, young or old, they have to meet and show the abilities to do the essential job functions.
What is one specific example of what has been corrected as far as?
Well, I think in terms of having, you have to bench press so much weight or do so many pull-ups, those aren't necessarily found to be necessary to do the job of a police officer. So the initial physical agility test that each applicant must pass during the testing process, you take the written test initially, followed with a physical agility test. As you're getting out of a car, talk on the radio, handle a weapon, run through an obstacle course, climb through a window, go upstairs, drag a bag that simulates human weight, things that you would actually have to do on the job, climb a 4-foot fence. Those are things that we know happen on a frequent basis, and so if you can do those things, that's more specific to the job versus just being particularly strong or agile, as long as you're appropriately functional.
Okay. Now, I haven't seen this in a while, but do they still partner up and where 2 officers are riding in the same car? I haven't seen that, but...
During the training phase, that still occurs, and it's a relatively extensive training phase. Between 4 and 6 months, officers are in field training where they're actually in a car. They've received this specific academic training and the skill level training for the different functions of a police officer. But then we don't just throw them out into the car and hope that they succeed, but we put them with a trained field officer who has a lot of experience, him or herself, and specific training as a training officer. And they watch them go through the different aspects of the job over a period of months to ensure that they've integrated that training piece into the field piece to where they're fully functioning officers. They must pass that to be able to complete the process and become an officer.
Okay. Now you have many programs through the police department that deal with the community, but there's one that I want to ask a question about because it is a particular interest and love of mine, and that is you have canine dogs.
Yes.
Tell me about where these dogs come from and the training they receive.
We have 3 animals, and they're Belgian Malinois, and it's similar to a German Shepherd. And these dogs are purchased from a vendor who actually the dogs are trained in Belgium, brought into the United States, and the locations they're brought into. The dogs have received most aspects of police training. When we actually adopt the dog, a training officer is selected through our process in the department. The officer then travels down to the importation site and begins to spend 3 intensive weeks kind of marrying up with his animal. They are introduced, that's a process, and then the dog's skills are demonstrated to the handler, and then the handler begins performing those training pieces to the dog. So when they arrive back in KCK, we have a fully trained dog and handler, and the dogs have various skills: article searching capacity, they can search for humans, they can do patrol work, they can do building searches, they can search for drugs, and then we have had dogs who can also search for like bombs or other EOD type devices, and so each dog is trained differently, and we use those dogs very actively in our narcotics investigations. And all the dogs that we currently have and have always had recover lots of drugs and lots of illegal contraband associated with drugs.
Okay, and these are police officers then? These animals are, dogs are police officers?
Yes, they are. The dogs, there's actually special statute that gives them a certain value, and to hurt or try to injure a dog is actually a violation at state level charges. So they are given a very special position by statute, that they're truly an extension of law enforcement of the police officers themselves. They're very valuable. These dogs are very expensive.
Okay. Well, we're going to wrap up with my last question, and I'm going to ask you, what do you see the future of the Kansas City, Kansas Police Department under your leadership?
Well, I think it begins with community. I think that every successful police department, where our success is predicated on a relationship with our community. And I just think we have one of the most incredible police community partnerships that I've observed in law enforcement, and we're a lot of departments envious of that. In fact, our citizens are willing to engage with us, work with us on common problems and issues, and I think that crime sometimes is more of a facet of an underlying deeper problem, and I think those underlying problems are things that requires community police working together to try to address. And so I see that as being very critical, and technology is going to be a piece of that, because no individual can remember all of the pieces of information that lead to successful, crime reduction. And with technology, it allows our officers to be more informed and capable, and crime analysis is a big piece of that. And the technology behind that allows our officers to be more aware, informed, specific about what they do when they go on patrol. It's not just random any longer. Each and every officer who goes out in service in the police department in KCK knows where to go, where the area is most likely for crime to occur, so they can be there to help prevent it. They know who is most likely to be committing it, so we're looking for those individuals. We have a relationship with the community, so they're helping us and pointing us in the right direction, helping assist us in this process of basically keeping the community safe. So I see technology and deeper police community partnerships as the key to making KCK the best place to live and the safest place to live in the future.
Well, thank you so much for that. Congratulations on your promotion to Chief, and we're happy to have you as our guest today. And you are more than welcome to come back and share any information as you see you would like for the community to get out from our Kansas City, Kansas Community College's TV station.
Well, I'm honored to be here, and thank you for having me.
Thank you. And thank you for joining us today on Conversations conversations. We'll see you next time. Have a good evening.